I was 75 years old when I started shooting this documentary. I owned a different El Camino then. Driving home tonight is 8 years after the first shot. During that time, I learned a lot about health, safety, and sleep. But it took all those years for me to understand the only thing I really own is my time.
Who needs sleep? Who needs sleep? Who needs sleep?
I said I'm young, I'm strong, I could work hard all night long. I need some money in my pocket. You snooze, you lose, no time to pay your dues. I'm moving up just like a rocket. I can't waste no time in bed, 'cause I can sleep when I'm dead. I got big old fish to fry, so step aside as I cruise by. It's a waste of time, I'm feeling bad.
Have you ever worked long hours?
Yeah, Haskell. In fact, we worked long hours on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest together, remember?
They're never less than 12 hours in a day.
Like 14 hours a day at least.
An average of 15 to 16-hour days.
Monday and Tuesday, we worked 2 17-hour days.
What's the longest day you've worked?
22.
You know as well as I do that most of the time you're working uncivilized hours. There is no such thing as civilized hours in the motion picture business.
Okay, very quiet, please. Stand by.
45 Denver, take 2, more.
Action. And cut.
One of the problems with the movie business is it does seem glamorous, and so there are a lot of people who would say, oh, I'll do anything. You know, at least at the beginning of their careers, you know, I'll do anything, I'll sweep the floors, I'll do ridiculous hours. And so it's a business where there's a lot of opportunity to rip people off.
Hollywood wants you to only have one mistress, and that's her. And it's very, very difficult to have a family. It's very, very difficult to have relationships of any sort.
I hardly know anybody that hasn't been divorced, and usually more than once.
My first marriage ended because I was working too much. My second is on the rocks because I don't work enough.
At the end of last season, we had a lot of babies born in our crew. And I was congratulating the guys because I didn't know they had the energy to go home and do that sort of thing, to make babies.
Family. This is the McCleary family.
It's not like you don't have a husband. You still have to deal with all the, his dirty laundry appears at night, and then there's coffee cups and things left in the morning. So, so sometimes we don't see him, but we see evidence of him sort of droppings through the house.
Welcome to Hot Talk, and today I'm really proud to have in studio with me a great cinematographer, Haskell Wexler. You've worked in the industry now since the 1950s, right?
Yeah, I started shooting 1947.
You've been nominated for 6 Oscars. You've won 2 for Bound for Glory and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. But he's also produced many documentary films, including a recent one on the Bus Riders Union in Los Angeles.
It's true. I've been shooting film a long time. But today, especially on TV shows, 14 or more hours are normal.
I play tennis with some lawyers and investment bankers, and they talk about the long hours just as we talk about the long hours. But I think the big difference is their long day starts at 7 and is over at 8 o'clock, but our long day could start at any time of the day and is over at a time undetermined by us. We go until they tell us to go home. I think ultimately that's what a lot of us regret, is the time away from the families. In all my years in this business, I've never had dinner with my family when I'm working. It's the one thing I regret, is the dinners. Never once, ever, while you're working, do you ever have dinner with your family. It's a big thing to miss.
Hey, this is Hollywood. You're all making good money, so what's the big deal about losing a little sleep? These are surprising statistics, but the Department of Labor takes into consideration we are part-time workers. In some cases, we're earning close to, or sometimes even less than the average worker.
For somebody who doesn't have regular work, they're not going to complain about their hours because they can't afford to.
We share the same insecurities as millions of part-time workers who are scrambling from one job to the next and working longer and longer hours for less pay.
It's daytime, right?
It's time to go home.
Now, do you go home?
I go home. I drive home every night.
How far do you drive?
This location is 59 miles to my house. Tonight I'm actually a little tired, so I'll probably pull over to truck route at 5 and 405 and take a little nap.
Now, can you sleep during the day with the baby?
My wife tries to help that out a little bit. Not much, but a little bit, because she wants to play, so she's worth it. Be a little tired for her.
From the time he left work till the time he has to go back, in those precious 10 hours, Don will try to sleep and squeeze in a life.
You're used to leaving before dark and come home after dark. A 10-hour day feels like a half day.
You plan on having a family?
Yeah. I'm having already 2 babies in there. So, I guess I'm planning.
Do you know if they're boys?
One is a girl, the other one I don't know. But imagine the working hours is so crazy, I don't even have time to go to the doctor to find out the gender of the babies.
I'm a mom, and I have a family, and it's something you give up in a lot of ways. You give up many good times with your family. You pay a very fierce price.
I have a 5-year-old son, and I'd say that's where the conflict of this job comes in for me personally, because I'm not always there when he gets up in the morning, and I'm not always there when he goes to bed, and some days I'm not there for either. But there are weeks when I'm not working, and I guess I try to make up for it then.
Yeah, go as far as you can without getting into the other gel.
What the hell's taking so long for a little shot like this?
Overtime was a deterrent to long hours. Not anymore. With no wage increases in years, some need the overtime to pay the bills.
You want long hours. You want as many hours as you can get until you get that cutoff point where you have your health insurance hours. Like right now, what do I need? About 80 hours to qualify. These are pay stubs, and as you see, I'm ignoring the money right here, and I'm circling the hours, 63.8 hours. That's 0.8 of an hour, and that's this right here. This is life and death right here. I'm against long hours, but when you need those hours, you're going to get them any way you can.
But I remember that work hours were not always this way. 8 hours was a normal day for our crew and for the mill workers. We worked hard, but there was always time for friends and family.
I remember my dad, who's been in this business for 50-some years. We could count on him leaving in the morning at 7 a.m., go to work at Fox, do a full day on Hollow Dolly or Patton or Great White Hope or whatever you want to be on at the time, and he'll be home pulling in the driveway by 7:30. And we had a lifestyle. We knew who our daddy was.
The U.S. was once an international leader in reducing work hours. From the 1860s, Americans fought and died for the 8-hour day.
We want to feel the sunshine and we want to smell the flowers. We are sure that God has willed it and we mean to have 8 hours. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for what we
In 1938, Congress passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, which established the National 40-Hour Work Week and mandated time and a half for overtime. But today we suffer a work epidemic of 24/7, and it's not just the film business. Government workers, truck drivers, pilots, auto workers, high-tech professionals, doctors. In fact, nurses work an average of 6.5 overtime hours a week. That's the big picture, but what I know best is the film business. Sometimes we forget we're workers too.
You gotta do overtime in Hollywood. If you ain't been working, the money looks good. You work all night long after working all day. Work that hard, you're gonna pay.
It was late when Brent called to say he was coming home. And I remember asking him if he was going to be able to have enough rest to get up to take Ariel to the doctor. She had strep throat. He told me he loved me and he would be home.
Motorist, he looked like he's in very bad shape, like his car is totaled out. There's a whole lot of smoke, and he's up in like the embankment there, and he could be hurt. Whoever is in there could be hurt.
How many vehicles?
I only saw one.
It was the first week of Pleasantville, and we were all wiped out.
There's a place where life is simple, and everything is black and white.
Honey, I'm home. I think it was a 19-hour day, if I remember correctly. My second assistant, Brent Hirschman, he took my hand, and he was a very big guy, and he had a really giant hand. And he took my hand, and he said, "Thank you very much. I just love that lighting and that last shot, you know." And it was a guy who'd, he was mostly too busy to even look at the lighting, and I just was so touched that he took the trouble to say that.
He was a family man. He wanted to get home, and he was looking forward to wrapping and spending the next day or two at home with Ariel to spoil her like he did.
There was a flurry of phone calls among the crew. Yes, you know, everybody was horror-stricken that one of us would die like that. But even then, we started to express indignation about how wrong this situation was, how this really shouldn't have happened.
I remember being very angry that he lost his life simply for working hard.
When we were shooting the Lethal Weapon series, it got so bad, people working a minimum of 14 hours, and then driving home 2 or 3 hours and turning around driving 2 or 3 hours, that we had 3 or 4 major automobile accidents.
I fell asleep at the wheel a quarter mile from my house after working 17 hours.
And I wake up going...
I ended up falling asleep at the wheel, taking my car into a tree at 50 miles an hour.
I woke up when a cop stopped me. And I said, "What did I do wrong?" And he said, "Well, I've been following you. You ran 7 red lights in a row."
Waking up 2 lanes over up by the 14 Antelope Freeway. And I just, first thing in my mind was my kids and my wife and everybody and saying, what am I doing?
Studies show sleepy drivers cause at least 100,000 accidents a year.
The number may be 3 to 4 times that. No one really knows.
What we have learned about sleepiness is somewhat surprising. A very small amount of sleep debt or sleep loss can make a person dangerous. We looked at patients who we deprived of sleep over 1 week, 2 hours a night, and we kept one group up just 24 hours. And then we got one group drunk. And we compared the sleepy patients with the group that got drunk, and they essentially had the same performance. The sleepy people acted just like the drunk people on the driving course.
That's what happened to Brent. The night he died, he had already worked 4 15-hour days. And on Friday, it was 19 hours. That's a big sleep debt.
What Brent's death pushed me to do was to get involved in trying to see that the circumstances that caused his death didn't occur again. Bruce McCleary, who was my gaffer, he and I wrote a petition.
On March 6, 1997, Brent Hirschman, the second assistant cameraman on Pleasantville, drove an hour home from work in Long Beach. He was exhausted, but his 8-year-old daughter, Ariel, had been sick and he wanted to be with her when she woke up. Midway through his trip, the exhaustion overcame him. He drove his car off the road and was killed. We petitioned all production companies, all movie studios, and this industry to limit our workday to 14 hours, beginning at the call and ending when the last person is wrapped.
Pretty much the whole crew signed it.
And very quickly we were getting phone calls asking for copies that people could sign and circulate on their own movies.
The crew of Pleasantville were out in public saying Brent's death was a warning. I took an ad in Variety to help the cause. You couldn't go on any set in Hollywood without hearing about long hours and how we have to do something about it.
And so in a very short period of time, you know, we had sort of a national event going on.
Brent Hirschman was 35 years old when he died. He fell asleep while driving home after working 19 hours as an assistant camera operator on the set of Pleasantville, an upcoming film.
Almost anyone could imagine being Brent Hirschman that night. It's just a coincidence that it happened to him. It could be anybody on any long day on a movie or a television show or even a commercial.
These 10, 15, and 20-hour days have become more common in an increasingly competitive environment.
No one else works the way we do. No one would begin to conceive of working these hours because it's anti-human, it's anti-family.
Discussions are ongoing between the Hollywood guilds and unions to come to a consensus. With more than 10,000 signatures so far, Brent's rule and the legacy of Brent Hirschman's life continues.
Many people were not directly affected by long workdays. Movie stars and directors signed these petitions.
Certainly in the business that we're in, there is a great tendency to overwork people. And as an actor, I am given a kind of union buffer in that I have to be allowed a certain number of hours between the time I leave work and the time I have to come back to work. So if I see the crew getting worn out and tired and overworked, then I'll say, no, I have to have my 12 hours. Because if I have 12 hours, I know they have a fighting chance at a nap or something, you know. I was glad to hear you say that you don't want to make it seem like, you know, like we're all going wham, belly aching about our jobs because we work so hard to get here, but then there has to be, you know, reasonable guidelines, I think.
Yeah.
By mid-1998, the Screen Actors Guild, the Directors Guild, and the Writers Guild were all committed to trying to pass resolutions.
After Brent's passing, I was asked to make a speech downtown Los Angeles in front of approximately 10,000 people. And I got up on the podium, and in my heart, I made a promise to myself and my kids that I would not let Brent's passing be in vain.
Look at all these. This must have come from some meeting at the DGA. Look, these are all
We were getting phone calls and letters from around the country supporting Brent's rule. Then this came. I guess not everyone was worried about losing sleep. Sell shoes means that's the way it is. Love it or leave it.
While Hollywood is looked at as a very glamorous industry, it is also an industry that frequently is really run on kind of sweatshop style conditions. That is, if you can stand it, you can work. You can't stand it, get out.
John, what happened to those petitions?
In the body of the petition, it said that when the page was filled, to please send it to the IA, to the camera local. And they all went to the union and disappeared, as far as I know, into a black hole when I asked to get them back some months later so that I could make my own mailing list. I was told that I couldn't have them.
A great effort was made to using Brent's death as an example to bring attention to the problem. All that's left of that now is a few faded bumper stickers and stickers on camera cases.
You would have thought that that would have sounded a wake-up call within the industry, but there has been no real appreciable change. This is an industry that works best on crisis, and it has not yet been identified as a crisis situation, but I think it is. I think it's the most significant, terrible thing going on in the industry today that basically isn't really being covered.
In Brent's case, after several appeals, the ultimate determination of the court was that Brent was negligent himself in trying to drive home when he was that fatigued. I disagree strongly with that because he had no alternative.
Brent was a victim, and you have to think of someone who's in an accident like that as a victim. It is not their fault. They are helpless. It is the long hours you work, and he had worked long hours.
There's almost 5,000 people here, and almost all the major people in the world that are studying sleep. And anything you want to find out about sleep, everybody in the world comes to this meeting.
What's the big deal about sleep?
There's over 30 million people in America that have some sort of sleep disorder that can't get to sleep, can't stay asleep.
One of the biggest problems in our society is that almost everyone has no awareness of exactly how sleep deprivation works. All lost sleep, and that is the sleep you obtain on a daily basis less than your daily requirement accumulates as a debt, the sleep debt. That debt accumulates inexorably day after day. You almost never pay back the sleep debt. And so all of the people who have this sleep loss, sleep debt, who are working in jobs where they are not allowed to get enough sleep, have a risk. They have this monkey on their back that's going to seize them literally at any moment. Drowsiness is red alert. And the bigger the debt, the more likely you are to fall asleep, the more likely you are to fall asleep behind the wheel. We're starting to learn in more recent years that this chronic sleep loss affects things like diabetes, a tendency for obesity to occur.
If you always are in a state of sleep debt, cutting your sleep maybe by as little as an hour per night, you're going to be a little bit more hungry and eat a little bit more. This is a major problem in this country, particularly since we have an epidemic of obesity. Let's remember that sleep deprivation is unique to the human. There is no animal that tries to sleep deprive itself. They just sleep what they need to sleep. We are totally unique in this desire to overcome our sleepiness and stay awake no matter what, even if our body is screaming to go to bed.
Something to keep you going, and something to put you to sleep. in a hurry. It was late when my commercial wrapped, and so I had to take the red eye. It's a 2-hour drive to Jim Pagel's sleep clinic. We met on the set of Limbo.
Limbo. This is our monitoring room where you can see different people's brain waves. We're set up for doing nap studies during the day. How are you feeling right now?
I'm kind of tired.
If you restrict people's sleep longer and longer, eventually what you do is you get to a point where you can no longer keep them awake. People tend to have micro sleeps where they fall asleep and aren't aware that they're asleep for short periods of time. Okay, show us on the tape what happens. If you go out and you sleep deprive yourself where you don't sleep for days in a row, you can start to have a sleeping pattern similar to these patients with narcolepsy where you fall immediately into dream sleep. When we get back from lunch, we'll hook these electrodes up to you, Haskell, and we'll prove that you have a brain.
Hey, Jim, wait a second. The only problem is I'm not tired.
Well, we'll prove how sleepy you are. You may be a little sleep deprived from coming in the middle of the night, going through time zones. So we'll find out how sleepy you are in one nap yourself. Right. One nap.
Okay, thank you.
Just for the members of the American Society of Cinematographers, Dr. Jim Pagel is operating that camera.
We've got him hooked up with eye leads, chin leads, and we'll see if he actually falls into sleep.
No way was I going to go to sleep. But when they turned the lights down, I did rest my eyes for a couple of seconds.
Good morning. You had a micro sleep for about 25 seconds in a stage 1 after lying down in a dark room.
Haskell had a microsleep. Now, that microsleep was probably long enough, had he been driving, that he'd be dead.
I remember going home on the 101 after a long shoot, really tired. I rolled down the windows. I played the radio full blast. I even thought of Brent. The next thing I knew, lights out. I heard the paramedics debate whether I was dead or alive. Now I know you can't will yourself to stay awake. I didn't want anyone to know about that crash, but Connie knew. He said, "You better drive carefully or you'll end up in your own documentary."
One of the great cinematographers that we've ever had in our country is Conrad Hall, who worked a lot trying to call attention to this issue of work hours for the crews. And it's ironic that it was Connie because he worked harder than anybody and never complained.
Maybe we should shoot this at 30 frames, huh? Wouldn't that be nice? Sexy.
He was a guy totally devoted to the work.
Hi, Haskell.
Oh, my God. And what night is this?
This is Oscar night that Conrad Hall is going to win the award for American Beauty.
Just relax.
Back up for your
Thank you very much.
This is essentially my godfather, Haskell Wexler.
Yeah, when I
Who
know
still, who still knows me, who's still one of the few people out there in the industry who can call me Winnie and get away with it.
You get so nervous if you have to walk up there. It's such a relief when you don't win, I can tell you that. It's going to be so much fun rubbing elbows with the movie stars. So, Conrad, what happened? What happened? This happened.
This is an editorial written by my father, Conrad Hall. And here's what it says. As members of the ASC and as directors of photography, our responsibility is to the visual image of the film, as well as the well-being of our crew. The continuing and expanding practice of working extreme hours can compromise both the quality of our work and the health and safety of others. Conrad Hall.
The ASC is not the union. It's a society of top cinematographers. Conrad wanted help from Vilmos, Roger, and me to get the ASC to endorse his statement.
The ASC is a not-for-profit organization, and as such, I felt that it wasn't our position as officially as an organization to be involved with this kind of statement.
Someone at the ASC was quoted to me as saying that the ASC does not have the moral authority to get involved in this, and I wrote back and said I thought it had the moral obligation to get involved in it.
I received a call from Bruce Doring and George Deby urging me to withdraw my ASC statement. I could not understand why these two union officials were insistent about this ASC matter.
You know that Conrad called me and told me that both you and George called him and asked him to withdraw his statement about long hours.
I think that was George's call. That's not mine. He's the president.
I have a collection of the things that you have written and that George has written, that the local has said, that this is something which has to do with health, safety, life. And then when someone is going to make a statement agreeing with you've been saying, you go out of your way to stifle it. That's the way it looks from the outside.
Well, look, I don't think there was any attempt to stifle anything.
Knowing that Haskell and Roger and many other directors of photography agree that excessive hours are a problem should substantiate rather than take from the validity and sincerity of my statement. Signed, Conrad Hall. Wow.
What do you think?
I think my old man knows what he's talking about, and he isn't going to back down to anybody.
The studios were concerned because this was the first time in labor management history when all the guilds and unions were united on one issue.
Gil, you know why we're here?
Yeah, I know, Haskell. You're here to get me into trouble with something, and I think I know why we're here. We're here about the long hours in production of films and what can be done to shorten the hours. And really, one of the major issues was how long is long enough?
This is way back in 1997. We urge our fellow guilds or unions to join us with a calling for change. Yeah. You were on the inside. Did some word go out? How did it happen when so much momentum sort of dried up?
You know something, Haskell? I don't know. It seemed to me then, as it seems to me now, kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's safer, it's healthier, you do better work. Why work these long hours? And evidently I was wrong. Evidently there's some status quo out there. There's some exception to change. I just don't get it, Haskell. I don't know what it is.
Studios are no longer owned and run by two brothers named Warner or by Walt and Mickey Mouse.
But the truth is, who are the people you're working for? That seems to me what the big question is. Because the people telling you you've got to keep working until you finish your day, and I don't care whether it's an 18-hour day or a 14-hour day, are the people who are being told by their bosses, I think what you do, you bring that movie in at 55 days or I'm closing it down. And those people are being told, well, you've only got $2 billion to spend on movies this year because our real business is in the following things. And here I am making a movie for Universal Studios about the first Gulf War, but Universal Studios is owned by General Electric, who make weapons. And so we're just a drop in the ocean, Haskell, really.
Those petitions and the hazardous to your life luggage tags were printed and circulated by our camera union.
Do you want a tripod on that? I could hold it sexy if you want, because this is going to be an insert and it's going to be jumping on the big screen. Look at that. I'm telling Haskell Wexler what to do.
I say my ego's involved here.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Okay.
George wrote many articles supporting Brent's rule. But then he started backtracking. One of the quotes you said you wish you hadn't made was, "The truth is that greedy corporations are putting profits ahead of people, routinely jeopardizing the safety and health of the crew and cast." George, I remember it was on your doing that the union put out a petition.
And we circulated this petition in the studios with our business rep, taking it all over on the web, on the internet. And we have almost very close to 10,000 signatures, you know. And actually that, the collection of all these signatures, we took it to the international IAA.
George Deby sat next to me when the president of our international, Tom Short, told me to stop agitating against long hours, to cool it, because I was putting ads in Variety, and they told me I shouldn't get out ahead of the IA. There was sort of a break put on it. Could you explain to me what the other side of this story is?
We are one union out of 469 locals within the IA system, only one. And to go ahead and say, to speak for 469, we don't have that right. Even our own members said they don't care about, you know, the long hours they want to work and all that. It's very simple, you know. It's still a struggle. It shows you how the system works.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
It shows you how the system works.
George said he was criticized for writing about corporate greed. I never asked him who criticized him, but I do know there was a 180 shift. We started hearing a lot about workers who wanted the overtime money and didn't care about the hours.
And a lot of times, even with unions that want to do something, sometimes they're beholden to this very vocal minority, and becomes a very controversial issue within the union itself about what is the quality of life. Do you want a better quality of life? Do you want better safety, better health? Or do you want more money through overtime? And I think this is playing itself out in just about every industry out there. So not only is it management against labor, but sometimes it's labor against itself.
Workers, can you stand it? Tell me how you can. They got you working day and night. Will you take a stand? Tell me now, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Talk about it. Which side?
At some point, you came to me rather quietly and politely, and I think you used the phrase that we can't get out ahead of the IA.
I think, Haskell, if I was talking to you about sensitive issues, it had to do with negotiations coming up and the need to make sure that we came out of those negotiations well.
Nothing like a little bit of Hollywood, while I kept an eye out for Tom Short, our union president.
Good. Thank you.
What's happening?
What's happening? I wanted to ask you,
What?
you know, I'm on this, about this long hours, and I was just wondering.
For the record, I'd like to know if he still believes excessive hours place our members' lives at risk. Tom Short said that 8 years ago when Brent died.
It's a matter for bargaining is what it is.
It's a matter for market.
Bargaining. It's a matter for the bargaining process, the contract negotiations. Your local has to have proposals for that.
I see.
Okay?
Yes.
You do it in local negotiations, and then I will take it to the big table.
Good, thank you.
But it's a subject matter for bargaining, but it's got to be proposals that are given.
Thank you, Tom.
No, you just run it by me.
As usual, I appreciate it getting it straight from you, because
You
sometimes...
have a question, you come to me.
Okay.
Don't go to the feet, go to the head.
Well, that's it. Matter of bargaining.
What these schedules are doing is simply building in that time. It is not just a managerial negotiating thing. It is an issue of life and death.
When I went home to Chicago, I visited Conrad and Scott on the set.
64 Apple, take 5.
We were consistently doing 14 to 18-hour days. We were working days into nights and nights into days. We were out in the cold at night and in the day too, because it was wintertime.
There were long hours, probably the longest hours I've ever experienced. We had, on this picture, we had 3 20-hour days. There's no question it becomes a problem.
The last day, I was on the set for 18 hours before I got my close-up. And if I remember correctly, Jude Law was on the set 21 hours before he got his close-up. The question is, how much do these long hours affect creativity? For actors, maybe not as much as one would think, because we go back to our dressing rooms, we sack out. The people on the line, though, the cameramen, the assistants, the people who don't get that chance to rest for a while, you can imagine what 18 hours does to their concentration.
If I was going to put together the perfect way in order to make a movie, I think it's 5.5 hours of work and then an hour for lunch and then another 5.5 hours for work and then everybody goes home on the tick of the clock.
It was a tough shoot, and a lot of people were getting colds and had the flu. To do that week after week for 15, 16 weeks, and it takes its toll on anybody.
Well, sleep is a way we measure stress. If you don't sleep, that actually can increase your stress levels. Stress, we find, especially with dealing with conditions like cancer and other serious diseases, lowers your ability to be able to tolerate therapy and to do well with the disease.
I'm a 2-time cancer patient, and one of the things my doctor told me is, he says, the way you live your life in this business, the way you're turning around your sleep patterns and your eating patterns, it kills 1/3 of your killer cells. Killing 1/3 of your killer cells, that's what protects you from diseases like cancer.
Here we go! Action!
Film sets are ultimately dangerous places to be. We're working with a lot of electricity, we're working with a lot of heavy equipment. The cameras still weigh 50, 60 pounds. Assistants still have to bench press these things. Grips still have to go climb on the 18th hour to hang a flag on something. And electricians still have to try and manipulate near power lines in the 18th hour in a rainstorm. But every time you go to an action movie and you see the explosion or the car chase, there is the camera crew who are standing right next to those explosions. The worst scenario is to be in the middle of the night and you're about ready to film the big flip-over stunt. And a number of times, we had no idea of how much to trust our special effects department, who had also been working for 18 or 20 hours. We were afraid for our safety in a very real sense.
That would be really nice. Yeah, put your hand right through there. All right, you guys ready on the roof? Working on it. As I was telling you the other day, Hooper, in this scene you'll be escaping across the roof with the dog. Now, about halfway through, the sling will break, and down you will come, dog and all.
Okay, people, let's go. Just a minute,
Give me
Sonny.
that dummy
wait a minute.
dog.
Wait, Sonny, do you remember me? Bidwell from the
Oh,
Humane
hi,
Society.
George.
Listen,
Good
I'll
to
tell you
see
right
you.
now, no dog is going to fall from that.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. We have a dummy dog.
Here at the film unit, we protect animals in film and television against abuse, neglect, and exploitation.
I worked Free Willy with the killer whales. I worked Operation Dumbo Drop with elephants. And so it ranges the gamut from cockroaches, ants, to zebras, A to Z. We do everything.
We get a lot of criticism because we believe that we protect all animals in entertainment. And by animal, we define that as any sentient creature. because our authority is through the Screen Actors Producers Codified Agreement. We believe that these animal actors have contractual rights, and they deserve to go home at the end of the day safe and happy. Crew will come up and say, you know, why don't you protect us? The animals are being protected better than we are. So I'm sure you can address that. How often do you get that question asked?
About 5 times a day.
Jim, we're working 16 hours. Give me some advice. What can we do?
If you're shooting at night, your crew's going to be sleepy, even if you try to make up for those hours during the day. A lot of people get used to being tired. Folks develop a lifestyle saying, I don't need sleep. Who needs sleep? Who needs sleep? In fact, this was the big thing with the Coors commercial. It reflects society's way of looking at sleep as having no function.
There's a macho quality to it, that people brag about how many hours that they work, the way they brag about their sexual conquests. That when I was an assistant, there would be people, myself included, who would work 90 hours a week. It was, how cool am I that I can work 90 hours a week? It was like the equivalent of people talking about how big their dicks were. It was pathetic.
Sometimes our jobs require long hours to get our shots, and there's plenty of 9-to-5 jobs out there if you can't hack it.
They are hazardous to your health, but I think that sometimes they're necessary, and especially in this day and age with the industry and the climate that it's in right now, I think it's very important to put in the hours.
Do we have to accept a life-threatening situation to show we care about our job? The union avoids that question with a diversion.
Runaway production took center stage, and it meant that the main question on members' minds was runaway production and not long hours.
Watch me wallabies feed, mate. Watch me wallabies feed. They're a dangerous breed, mate. So watch me wallabies feed. All together now, tie me kangaroo down. Sport, tie me kangaroo down.
I've done films in Prague, in Ireland, Germany, the Philippines. In my experience, studios go overseas for tax breaks, for favorable currency exchanges, for cheaper labor rates. They don't go overseas in order to work longer hours.
See? You got any other stuff?
Billy, we worked on 61 together.
That's where I know you from.
You know, I'm making this documentary about long hours. You shot long hours.
That's right. We shot some time in Paris, and the French crew, when they heard that we were going to be shooting American hours, was furious. But they're French. But they were very upset that they were going to have to put in a longer day. The French we set up a few shots, then they were upset that we had white wine with lunch. It's a solely American thing, the hours.
Very Crystal. You're right.
I was lucky to catch up with Nicola in America. Like Vittorio and Dante, he works all over the world.
What happened when I came here is that I found that long hours, it doesn't matter because we are in golden hours. Yeah, but you're killing yourself. You're in golden hour, you make a lot of money, and then you have to spend it to cure yourself? Where is the point?
Yeah.
You know, it's nuts.
In other countries, how do the film workers deal with long hours?
And it's extremely unlikely that anybody would accept to go more than an hour overtime. Literally, if you go on stage, you are done by 7 o'clock. That's it, finished. Once in a while it can happen, the actor won't be here tomorrow, we have to finish the scene, but it has to be really a special need, because otherwise, literally, people get up and go away.
Website on there, and
These are T-shirts we started putting out into the industry, into the film industry, to start trying to get people to think about working more reasonable hours and not killing ourselves making movies. The 12 on, 12 off T-shirts. Some of the shirts have what we call the +3 rules on the back. No more than 12 hours of work, no less than 12 hours of turnaround, and no more than 6 hours between meals. If a whole crew is walking around wearing T-shirts that say 12 on, 12 off, then we might get producers' attention in a non-confrontational way. Ironically, in Europe, they're wishing that the shirts said 10 on, 14 off. To them, the fact that we are fighting for 12 hours seems sort of absurd, you know.
I see how this international crew works decent hours. They're happy and they're on schedule.
I must say, we haven't had that problem here. No long hours. It's been very, very civilized. So.
Here in Italy, there's a maximum of only 4 hours of overtime per week. Australian crews don't work on Saturday, and some Canadian provinces mandate at least 48 hours off on weekends.
I do think that in the United States, we think there's almost nothing more important than the jobs that we do. And I have found working in other countries that people are interested in their real lives. They're very professional and very intent to do great work. But that's a separate issue from home and hearth and their life.
C'est reçu, Joseph, c'est reçu.
In Paris, you never shoot Saturdays. The weekend is sacrosanct. But on French Kiss, the producer asked for permission from the, quote, syndicate, which is like a union group, to shoot Saturdays, and was explaining all the benefits of doing this in terms of the Christmas holidays. And the syndicate voted, and the vote was something like 83-1 against it. And the gentleman explained that this was not any sort of disrespect to the Americans, but to his mind, in France, people work to live, whereas it seemed to him that in the United States, they live to work.
They say hard-working money make the world go round, but I've got bills to pay, I'm in a hole in the ground. Life's so fast, I can't get no rest. Try to keep up and do my best. I got an SUV, a cell phone, and a flat TV, but when I get home from work, you see, I'm a hamster in a cage and never get ahead. Working harder, faster, till I'm dead. I've done 2 double shifts and I want to go home, but my boss man says better leave that alone. Union told me just cash your check. Don't ask no questions, boy. You're just another card in the deck.
We're the only group of industrial workers in the world fighting for a 14-hour day.
It sounds so absurd. So why do long hours happen?
To get a picture going, sometimes you have to wink when you sign off on the schedule. That because you're signing off on a schedule that will get the picture going, but that's not totally realistic. And you try to make up for it in other ways as you're going along.
Some people think it makes financial sense to work these hours. If I went to a studio and said, look, I have a method where you can pay people 3 times their normal rate, and I can guarantee you that they'll work at half their normal efficiency, people would throw me out the door.
I once was on a film, and we were doing a 20-hour day, and they told me because they can hide overtime in the budget, but they can't hide extra days.
Let's do final checks.
Yes, he said! They think the real problem is the system itself is rotten. The fact that movies are just seen as commercial products. It does anything to do with art, and even less anything to do with the humanity of the people working on the project, because at that point, it's history. Capitalism doesn't give a shit about the men. They are there if you need them. You don't need them, you fire them. They are not convenient, you outsource them. That's a reality. When they talk about capitalism with a human face, it's an oxymoron. It can't be, because that is all for the profit.
And so we have all of these industries, shift work industries, entertainment industries, transportation industries, that are doing this to people all the time.
Okay, I'm rolling.
Marker?
I'm rolling. I read this warning about static at the gas pump. And I think it's one of your first articles and as your official position. So you put out the caution flag not to use their cell phones at the gas tank, but you're not going to say that if you work 16 hours, 6 days a week, you are endangering yourself and your fellow workers. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. The reality is, we as a local can only do so much. We cannot carry the workers of the state of California on one local's shoulders.
Suppose the studios say, we have to shoot these scenes in asbestos. Who do we talk to if we don't talk to the union?
Well, you do have to talk to the union, and we have to be able to know when they're doing these long hours so that we can deal with them. Right now, until something comes up from the state legislature, or better yet, on a federal level, we are not able to deal with the long hours and tell our members, say, hey, listen, this shows the hours are getting long, that we can go out and deal with it on a one-on-one basis with the producer.
Okay. I'll have you know I don't use my cell phone at the gas station anymore.
When we were making 61, it was the first time I had ever been to a safety meeting on a movie. And I knew it was going to be hours. There were going to be long hours. We didn't have a lot of budget. We had a lot of baseball stuff to shoot. If you think a baseball game moves slowly, try shooting a baseball game. Haskell was very eloquent in it, saying nothing good happens when there's long hours. People don't function well. People get hurt. People don't act as well. People don't keep things in focus as well. Not Haskell, but that does happen.
First day we were into 14 hours with more to go. They called a wrap after I used the safety insurance words, a hazardous situation exists. We worked 14, 16, 17 hours after that first day. I said nothing. I signed on for Billy, hazard or not.
If you establish yourself as a whiner, as a troublemaker, as somebody who wants to go home after 8 hours, then your career opportunities are going to be limited. A union contract should take some of that pressure off. If the contract is strong enough, then the crew doesn't have to get involved on a personal level. That's what a contract should do. It should insulate individuals in the crew from retaliation.
I had hoped that the union would see long working hours as a safety issue and would address it that way, and the union's chosen not to. And I had hoped that OSHA would take an interest, but you know, OSHA is a pretty ineffective agency in these political times.
Today, corporate influence extends to all government regulators.
I wrote to OSHA and I got a very sort of standard response. You know, I think the reality is there aren't enough people being killed on film sets for OSHA to pay attention. But Brent will not be the last person to die because of long hours.
Yeah, we're going to go to OSHA. We've called them a number of times, written, and can't seem to get any response from them. So we're going to try the Michael Moore approach. Frank Bellinger, this is Haskell Wexler. I'm downstairs from your office in Washington, D.C. And I know that one of the questions I wanted to ask you in OSHA is about long hours, but apparently you're not afflicted by that disease, because I have called you early in the morning and late in the afternoon on various days of the week and cannot get a reply.
Yes, hi, this is security at 3rd and C Street entrance, ma'am. I have two visitors down here to see Mr. Frank Milliner.
He's gone home. What? If it's not too personal, what time's he coming to work?
Mr. Wexler, this is Frank Meilinger with OSHA, and I was just calling regarding your request for an interview. Well, we certainly appreciate the offer. We're going to have to decline.
Frank Mellinger, this is Haskell Wexler. Can you explain again what is the situation?
Self-employed, and there has to be an established employer-employee relationships. As far as work hours, we don't even go there. We're concerned with on-the-job safety.
But you're saying that fatigue is not considered a safety hazard and is
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it's not something that OSHA regulates. We don't regulate time. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. We don't regulate time.
Who would the workers go to for protection against this This is where we're going. Right here, State of California Department of Education, Cal OSHA consultation.
I don't know of any OSHA regulation that specifies how many hours you can have an employee work. But generally speaking, it is definitely a negotiation situation, usually with bargaining units and things like that.
So what you're saying is that safety and health has not considered the dangers of repetitive excessive hours.
Well, I wouldn't say we have not considered it, but I'm saying that isn't something that's written in black and white in our standards as far as how many hours you can ask an employee to work.
So I'm saying, who do we go to? That's why I came to talk to you.
Well, again, first of all, you start with the employer. And what I'm hearing is that you don't feel you're getting any satisfaction from the employer. And then I don't know if you have a union, any type of bargaining agreement with the employer on how many hours you can ask your people to work. You should look to that source also.
Okay, so we got our work cut out for us. Thank you.
If we don't have a standard or regulation saying this is what the employer must do, there's not a lot we can do. Matter of fact, there's nothing we can do. We can't.
It's possible that Mr. Jett is not acquainted with OSHA Rule Injury Prevention Number 7.
Well, yeah, I have this paper here. In it, you quote here from the OSHA Workplace Injury and Illness Prevention document, and it says, "No one shall knowingly be permitted or required to work while the employee's ability or alertness is so impaired by fatigue, illness, or other causes that it might unnecessarily expose the employee or others to injury."
A lawyer friend of mine explained that the knowingly was the out, that the producers could say, well, they didn't know that Brent Hirschman or any one of the workers, after working these excessive hours, would then endanger themselves or endanger their lives.
All right. Well, you presented this report, right?
Yes.
To the Labor Management Safety Committee.
Yes.
So when you presented it, what happened?
The head of the producer's safety thing said it will have to go to the head of the Motion Picture Producers Association, Nick Counter.
We've been very conscious of compliance with OSHA, and we believe that our safety bulletins do point out to the producers the legal requirements of OSHA.
How look, obviously you're a reasonable man, you know a great deal, and everyone I've talked to has been reasonable. So how do you deal with an unreasonable situation that all people involved in it realize it, but then they continue to do it?
Again, I rely upon the expertise of the people that are on the set, the people that run the production, and they're the experts. And they have to make the judgment calls, and fatigue it should be a concern.
I'm beginning to wonder whether I'm looking for a conscience in the wrong places. Okay. What I'm hearing from the union, from producers, from OSHA, from officialdom, is the ability to know and not to know. To be aware of the complete truth when everywhere there is deceit on the lips of authority. These are bad times for all workers, not just film workers. We get constant reminders not to make even little waves. If we want to swim, it'll have to be in their tank. In this time of deceit, telling the truth can be a challenging act.
I am very strong that the company that created the long hours is responsible for the liability and the damage. I think there's starting to be precedents. I give a deposition and they settle. The CEOs or whoever makes the decisions realize they really are at fault.
This is not an issue where management can put its head in the sand and just say, I hope it goes away, because it's not going to go away. These industries are built on human beings. Human beings need to sleep.
In the state of California, if you leave a bar drunk, the bartender and the bar is responsible. The establishment is responsible for who you crashed into and what happened to you on that road. I think that if the production company were responsible for us getting home like a bar is responsible for a drunk getting home, I have a good, strong feeling a lot of us would have a lot shorter days.
When Scotty and I visited Conrad, we could tell his health was failing. U.S. companies shooting in Europe were demanding longer hours. Vilmos said, "It's time to go international," with Conrad's statement. We were surprised at how fast filmmakers around the world responded.
Conrad is for vous.
I agree with that.
For Conrad, 12 on, 12 off. That's it.
Köszönöm, Vilmos, hogy mesélt nekem Konrad Hallról.
Pour vous, Konrad Hall?
En hommage à Conrad, bonne chance, Conrad statement.
The backing for the statement just escalated. Then what happened is the statement got signed by just about every member of the ASC as individuals. I wish Conrad had said something a lot stronger, but you know, I think we all felt that statement was a statement that everybody in the industry could basically agree with.
With a change in leadership, the ASC finally approved Conrad's statement. It was a month too late for Conrad.
There, I like it dark.
I'm having a good time, but I'm tired. Long hours.
I had some discussions with Scott Sakamoto, you know, who worked on Road to Perdition with Connie, and we were both trying to analyze whether or not the long hours that they worked on that film had anything to do with the fact that he became very ill after that.
It's hard to say what exactly his health problems came from, but 18-hour days and 6 months of very hard work, whether we were 20 or 50 or 70, we were tired, and he was extremely tired after that.
Dad loved his work, and he got caught up in the work, and so he just ended up pouring himself into those jobs and working himself literally to death.
Welcome to the 75th Academy Awards.
And the Oscar goes to Conrad L. Hall for The Road to Perdition.
This is the third Academy Award and 10th nomination for the late Conrad L. Hall. Accepting on his behalf tonight is his son, Conrad W. Hall.
And I have to say that we have to thank our friend Conrad to underline this main and very important concept that human being need to find a balance between his private life and his public life.
Driving home from work, Michael Stone fell asleep at the wheel. He crashed head-on, killing himself and critically injuring another person.
I guess he just, fell asleep.
Michael's friends who mourn him at this memorial know what it means to drive home sleep-deprived.
We have another situation here. It's just another one of those industry, what are you going to do about it kind of things. We take it for granted, It's, you got to work these hours, you work crazy hours, and then something like this happens, and you go, is this necessary? But I don't know what the answer is.
We asked productions to work no more than 12 hours on March 11th in honor of Brent Hirschman.
Well, we just wrapped. My prop crew and I were loading the truck. We're getting ready to go home, and we did our full day today.
And, in fact, we placed an ad below the line for that, and we got great response.
We're not being killed with major overtime. We're pretty much finishing our day in or around 11 to 12 hours, which is great.
On Brent's Memorial Day, at least 7 crews drove home safely.
And I'm happy to say that we're working 12 hours on and 12 hours off today. It's March 11th, and I'm glad that we're doing this because we got to keep track of our lives and keep track of our futures.
At our last union convention, I thanked the delegates for favoring my resolution on fatigue. The vote should have meant union support to the growing grassroots movement, but it was clear the official positions remain the same. To this date, leadership has been unresponsive.
Brent died 8 years ago, and we still don't have protection in the union contract against the very thing that killed him. I never thought there was a finish line for this issue, and I hope that fatigue will be recognized as a big enough safety problem that it will be dealt with contractually. If there's change will happen because of the membership of the union and the people who work in these jobs. And I think that the grassroots movements will, in the end, will be the ones that affect change.
That's maybe the first step to do what we were talking about an international alliance of decent people making movies.
12 hours on, 12 hours off. That'll make a better job for everyone concerned.
Oh yes, your supporters.
Want a hat? A shirt?
12 on, 12 off.
White or black?
This is the last dolly shot Conrad photographed. He used the same camera I've been using to shoot this documentary. And when he gave the camera back to me, Conrad looked up to me and said, "Haskell, promise me you're going to finish the film." I promise, Conrad.
You sparked a flame that pushed me to fight.
12 on
I
and
felt
12
it was
off.
hopeless,
12 on,
even though
12
I
off.
was right.
12 on, 12 off.
People heard your call all over the world. When we cry victory, your voice will be heard. It's the words of a friend that helps you open the door.
For Brett.
To show there is power where you saw none before. Like a river that flows, wears down a stone wall. People moving together, standing up strong and tall. Hollywood is my mistress. She pays the bills and she means business. Just keep the candle burning till I come home. It's great work when you get it, but if you want a life, just forget it. Honey, you and the kids are gonna have to eat alone. I'll give you 12 hours of work, the best you've ever seen. Then I want 12 hours off in return. 12 hours on, 12 hours off. That'll make a better job for everyone concerned. I wanna work to live, not live to work, but this is nuts. I'm going berserk. I feel just like a drunk man behind the wheel. If I get through this job, I'm gonna pay my bills, and what's left, I'm gonna leave in my will, cause my sleep debt is growing from my head to my heels. I'll give you 12